Paulo.
Good evening, Paolo. We haven't even said hello to Paolo yet. We go live.
In the middle of our
we were just
conversation
Paolo.
about
We were just.
freeze.
I was just asking Wilson if he had any idea how many pull list customers that the Midtown Comics he goes to has. Because I don't like my it doesn't sound like they have that many more pull list customers than my small local LCS. And that could just because New York City people like to go in and browse. And they usually have I would say my LCS has 4 or 5 short boxes full of pull list customers comics, and that doesn't count the guy who gets everything. I think there's one guy at my LCS who practically keeps the store in business by buying a single copy of every comic book that comes out.
I cannot hear him. I don't know if you can hear him.
Can we not hear Paolo?
I cannot hear him.
I cannot hear Paolo either. Looks like he's going to have to restart again.
I see his lips moving, but I do not believe he's
sound
not audible.
Your lips move, but I can't hear what you're saying. Little Pink Floyd for you. Nope, still can't hear him.
Nothing yet.
Well, you said Midtown probably has, 6 or 7 short boxes?
I would guess from the...
At least you can see.
I could not see it because it's actually in the front of the counter, so the counter is blocking. But I know the size of a short box, and I know the space they're kind of working with. I assume there's 6 short boxes there.
Right.
3 on top, 3 on the bottom. It could be more, it could be less, but that's what I'm guessing. Just spatial awareness of what short box is and what
that makes sense.
Working in a comic book shop, I kind of know the size of a counter.
Right.
But again, I could only guess because they have 3 stores in Manhattan itself, and I know when I worked in Manhattan, I didn't need a pull list because I stopped by the comic book shop more than weekly.
More than there's a lot of customers that do that.
Yeah. So if I was at, because Midtown, I'm sorry, when I worked in a comic book when I worked at Marvel, the 2 offices that were there was always in walking distance to a bunch of major comic book shops. So for a while, I was mainly getting my books in Cosmic Comics, and those I would go there at lunchtime when we were on the 9th floor. And then I would go to Hanley's when I was on the 10th floor. And I didn't need a pull box because I was always able to just pick up the comics directly.
Did Hanley's even have a pull list?
I don't know. I don't think so. They may not have. I don't recall, because it was one of those things I didn't need to do. So for me, I didn't go looking for, to get a pull box. I've only had a pull box when I was in college.
Yeah.
And eventually I stopped having a pull box because I was working at that comic book shop that I had the pull box in.
Right.
And then once I started working at Marvel, there was no reason to have a pull box because I got everything from Marvel. I got most of Marvel and DC books already. And then I would visit, like I said, when I was on the 9th floor, we would go to Cosmic Comics on 23rd Street. I did not have a pull box there. And then when I was on the 10th floor, I started going to Hanley's because everybody was going to Hanley's.
Right.
So, and I would go there and passing Hanley's to go home, I would pass by it anyway. So I was there almost nightly just to see what was, what came in. I would go there definitely when the books came in.
I don't think Hanley's even had pull lists.
They may,
but you could always, if there was a comic you wanted, you could generally count on it being there.
Right. We would get the previews.
Right.
And it would be like, because I think I was getting previews from Marvel directly. So I would get the previews from Marvel. And if I wanted something, and I usually never did need to go, I have to have this, because 9 times out of 10, Hanley's had it.
Yeah.
So there was never really anything to order, from
Right.
what I recall. And then once I left Marvel, I was getting comics from a place called the Dragon's Den in Westchester.
Oh, is that
I did not have,
Scarsdale?
that was, no, not Scarsdale. That
Okay.
was, where was that? That was on Central Avenue. That might have been still considered Yonkers.
I just remember going to a place called the Dragon's Den in Westchester when I was over at SUNY Purchase in Westchester. And I
Right.
think it was in Scarsdale. I can't
It
swear to it. It's been so long.
it very well could been, because that's in that kind of that area
Yeah.
that is like, across the street. It's a different area,
Right. It
kind
it
of a
was in like a
thing.
strip mall on a pretty major road.
Yes, it was on
Yeah.
Central Avenue
Yeah.
was the
I
main
think it was
road that
Central
was on.
Avenue.
And
Right.
across the street from it was another place called Two If by Cards, One If by Comics. And
Oh, I don't know that.
they mainly only sold baseball cards and stuff like that. The only reason why they sold comics, because they were across the street from Dragon's Den.
I remember there was also a bookstore right near it that was kind of in the same parking lot as the strip mall, but not in the same strip of buildings. It was like,
They had a couple of locations.
oh, okay,
So they were once near Scarsdale, now that I think about it. And then, because when I was going to college, they were still on that Central Park Avenue.
okay,
And then when they closed that large location, they moved to a smaller location in a shopping area, which is in Yonkers.
okay. I must have
Uh,
known the larger location because that was
you would have
around
definitely
87,
known
88. Yeah.
exactly that would have been the larger location. So
Okay.
when they got to the smaller location, I think I had a pull list there. I didn't last long there. The store didn't last long there. They closed, and then a store called Phoenix of Westchester, like some of the
Ah,
people who own parts of the Dragon's Den, because the Dragon's Den had a bunch of owners apparently.
uh-huh.
So a few of the other owners who wanted to continue selling comics opened up a place in Scarsdale called the Phoenix of Westchester. So like Phoenix rising from the ashes type thing.
Right.
And so I would go there on a weekly basis. And I had a pull list there. And that was like, because I remember that was in a filing cabinet. And that was a 5-drawer filing cabinet. And we basically just went up and pulled the books out ourselves from the filing cabinet. That's how they had that one
The
set up.
honor system.
Basically, because then I would just pick out the books that I need to buy that week, and then you fall through the trap of I'll get this one later, and then next thing you know, you start filling that up. And it's like, okay, I
Ah,
can't do this anymore. I need to limit what I was getting.
that's always the problem for comic shops, people not picking up their pull list, especially in
Right.
this day and age
Uh-huh.
where the numbers add up really quickly.
Really quickly. Like I know of, there was another place called Alternate Realities. I did not have a pull list there, but I would visit the shop when I was in the area. Again, on that same large road, because you could take that road from the Bronx to White Plains is a straight cross. So there was at least over the years since the 80s that I am aware of at least 4 comic book shops open and closed over the years.
Wow.
So and every time one opened, we would go visit it. And some places would be open for about a month or two.
It
And they
is
realized there is
amazing.
no way we can have a comic book shop here. And then other ones lasted for years.
But
Alternate
my
Realities
my
was there
local
for 20
comic
years.
shop has been around since what, 83?
Mm-hmm.
There was I've had 2 local comic shops. One 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 opened in 1981, M&M Comics. That closed in 1998 or 99 or something. And the other, Comics Warehouse, formerly Paperback Exchange, opened in 82, 83. And that's the one I still go to now. But as during the boom years, there was at least half a dozen comic shops in the county. And Rockland County is the smallest county in New York State. So it's not very big geographically. So there were a lot of comic shops during the boom years, but after there's been like, I think there's two comic shops in the, well, one I just heard there's one that opened in the Palisades Center Mall, but it really is a
boutique,
a trade paperback and pop shop, Funko Pops. So I don't know how many comic books it has.
Right.
But there's been a remarkably few comic book shops in Rockland County over the last 20 years. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I only had the pull list for a short time.
I've had one since I was about 16.
And yeah, I never subscribed to comics. The only thing I ever subscribed to was a handful of magazines.
I subscribed to comics when I was a kid because they made for good Christmas and birthday presents.
Right.
So any subscription I had, I got for Christmas or my birthday. So that was good. I think I had a subscription to the Hulk. I had a subscription to Captain Victory. I had a subscription, I think, to Star Slayer. I had a subscription to a handful of Marvel comics. I can't remember which ones now. I know probably Amazing Spider-Man. But I had some subscriptions as a kid. Hello, Mind the Comics. And hello, Comic Crack. We're waiting for Paulo to show up again. He showed up and we couldn't hear him, and I think he got kidnapped now.
He was taken away.
Because this has happened before, and he's shown up in just a couple minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's like, where'd he go? Good evening, 62 Lefty Blues.
Welcome. So yeah, I couldn't guess how many, because again, like I said, when I was working in the city, there was no need to, because I could always, because I preferred to be able to just go in willy-nilly and just pick a comic book shop, go in, pick up some books. I was the kind of person that would go into, if they were the comic book shop, I would go in and get something. Just to support the store being local.
As a collector of mainly indie comics, I couldn't do that.
Right.
Because most shops don't get them in, or if they do, they only get a few in, and they go right away. So that's one of the reasons I've always had a pull list, is otherwise I wouldn't be able to collect all the comics I have.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be able to read them all because I'd never see them. I have to show you one comic I got this week. Faceless and the Family. This is the one by Oni Comic by Matt Lesniewski, which has some nice art in it, but I told you the lettering is too small. This is issue 3. Let me show you.
Oh, okay. Yes, I remember that one.
Right. Some nice art. A whole bunch of little lines. 6-point type. So I just have to tell you the story of going into the shop to get this week. Like I said, this is on my pull list. And I go number 3, and I go into the shop this week, and Roy, who's the owner, goes, they sent me this comic for free this week. They sent him a second copy for free. He's like, I tell you what, I'll give it to you for free. You don't even have to pay for it. I'm like, Roy, that's already on my pull list. And I got a copy right here. It's on my pull list. Right. And he's like, I knew if one person in the store got it, there's a good chance it was you. Can we hear Paulo now?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can hear him. All right.
We can hear you.
But I was just telling the story that Faceless and the Family. I walked into my comic shop by Matt Lesniewski, Oni Press. My comic shop owner goes, they sent me a second copy of a comic only one person in the store ordered, so you can have it for free. I'm like, Roy, I was the person who ordered it. So he's like, I don't have to keep it on the shelf and see if someone else wants it. So he was going to give this to me for free, except I was the person who already ordered it. Because there was a second copy. And I certainly didn't need a second one. I said, I always like to get previews. Sometimes it's more exciting to just see what's coming out than what actually does come out. Whenever I looked through previews back in the day, when I actually looked in it, I was always like, oh, look at all this stuff coming out. And I never ordered it. It was always Like I said, I like my email system now.
So for those who are just coming in at the beginning or right before we went on, I was talking about previews and going to comic book shops and where I would have a pull list. Now,
Good evening, Mr. Silver Age.
Hello. So when I was talking about Phoenix of Westchester, I would get previews from there, and I would get them free because I had the pull box. And the somewhat annoying thing, because like I said, before they were Phoenix of Westchester, there was a bunch of people, I don't know how many, co-owned the Dragon's Den. Yep. The main owner closed up. He retired, or he wanted to do something else, and he closed up. So and there was something going on. That place was like closing the shopping center's parking lot, and that was going to affect business. And because they were shutting down that area to build another parking lot on top of it, so they would be like multi parking lots. There was something went on, and the rent was going to go up or something or another. So they decided they're closing that store. So when the main guy pulled out, the store closed. This is from hearsay. I don't know the exact story. It was just one day we're going to be closing. So then a group of people got together and it's like, hey, we're going to open up, the other owners, we're going to open up another shop. And then they're calling it Phoenix of Westchester. And that one, I believe, was in Scarsdale. So when I was going there, I had my books that were being pulled, and then I would always get previews. The cool thing about that shop was that they also had a section where they played video games. So they had like Xbox set up and this what. So not only did we go there Thursday nights to pick up the books, but we would stay, play a few games. They had tables to play Magic the Gathering, all that. They had enough space for it that was actually pretty cool. The downside is that one of the owners, and I can't fault him because they bought this space, they're just brand new to it, was very much the kind of person that will walk around and says, have you seen the new previews? Is there anything you want to order? Let me know. We're going to order it. It's like, I have a copy of previews. Let me read my books, play the games, but it would be this constant, like, buy something. And so I would go through previews, and every now and then I'll say something that I like. It's like, yes, order me this. And every time I ordered something, because it would be a non-comic book item, whether it was a statue or a toy or something, and they would never get it in. Because it would almost always be something that was like, sometimes it'll appear in previews, but if not enough people order them, previews wouldn't fulfill it.
There's a minimum. Sometimes with those stuff, there's a minimum of stat or whatever. They won't just send you one. So the store has to order, 3 of them in order to get the discount. Or whatever, and they don't meet that minimum order, so they can't order it.
Yeah. So there have been things like that where it's like, I would like to order something for previews, but it never shows up.
Yeah. Something like when I order sort of on occasion, I'll order a specialty item from my store. And usually, like they have a system that's all computer. Roy, who owns the shop, he runs it part-time. He's got a job writing code for some big company. So he wrote all his own system. So it's like, every customer has a name and a number. So anything I order goes under my number and they give it to me. But sometimes like odd things come in and they're just like, I have to go, oh, did you get it in that so-and-so? And they'll be like, oh, that's who we ordered this for, huh? Because it doesn't come out for like 2-3 months and somehow it slips through the cracks.
Right.
And I'm like, I got to bring that back in. Because sometimes Roy buys things that he doesn't know who he ordered them for, so he doesn't leave them in the shop. He brings them home.
Right.
It's like, So sometimes I'm like, John's there, and I'm like, oh, did you get so-and-so in? He's like, we did, but Roy brought it home. I'm like, well, tell him to bring it back in. Let's see. We got people showing up. Sleepy Reader, greetings, cavernous cavern dwellers. Hello, 62 Lefty. I've collected the free previews and giveaways and calendars since the late 70s. Yes, I'm a hoarder. LOL. Wow,
Yes.
you have all the previews?
I tell
Wow.
you, I wish I kept the previews.
That's a lot of space to take up.
The previews do take up a lot of space. And real quickly, a year's worth of previews takes a whole bottom shelf of a 3-foot shelf, and I end up getting rid of them. But it's like the only things I wished I kept were the previews and my Wizard magazines, because now is the time to actually create content with it and go, this is what we had in the 90s. Because I did find a Wizard magazine, and that had a lot of engagement, because it was like, here's the peek into what comics were like in the 90s.
So Roy breaks in some of your comic for you. Nice.
I can get you pirated scans of every issue of Wizard if you want.
Yeah, because I want to share them online. It's actually more fun just flipping through the pages.
I just discovered what is the name of it? The Internet Archive has a magazine section.
I heard about that. There was recently, I've been going through the Library of Congress magazine section. Those are fascinating to go through, because they got magazines going back 100 years. Yeah. And I like looking at like the illustrated buildings, and back when they would have a regular ad would just have a calligraphy title. So I've been always looking at all those things. You know, those are fun to look at.
I've actually found information on auto racing on old skins of popular mechanics, and it's surprisingly well done, well researched, if not very deep, because they only had 1.5 pages for something that could take up the whole magazine.
Good man. Let's see. My dad still had the Montgomery Wards and Sears catalogs from the 50s. Whoa.
Ooh, nice.
I'm in Memphis, Tennessee, world's largest truck stop. There's a Diamond Distribution Center 25 minutes away in North Mississippi. The LCS owner drives down and picks up the orders and gets shorted all the time.
Oh, man.
Oh, man.
Oh.
You drive to the warehouse and you still get shorted. So sad that I didn't save all my comics buyer's guide from the 70s. And all the Mimeo and Ditto fanzines I bought through their classified ads. Yeah. I think a lot of those are scanned in these days, too. Matter of fact, I think Roy has, I'll have to ask him for him sometime, has a collection of all the fanzines, scans of all the fanzines from the 60s and 70s.
Yeah, the only fanzine that I picked up and kind of still pick, I mean, it became a magazine, was the G-Fan magazine. Because that started as a fanzine for Godzilla fans.
Fans of Chris Geruso?
No. This predates Chris Geruso.
Ah, okay.
So it was one of the few magazines, because they went from being bi-monthly to tri-monthly, and then they just became quarterly. But they started off as basically a fanzine self-cover, black and white. Then it moved in, and it came down from Canada, and eventually I was able to get them at comic book shops and stuff like that. And the only other one that I would have picked up, or I did pick up once or twice, but that became a full magazine, was like the Ditko one, the one about Steve Ditko was the fanzine. But I never had gotten a real altogether fanzine. Ditko-mania, yeah.
I got the latest issue a few months ago.
Oh, did you? Okay, so it's still in print, because I haven't really, because again, that's what I like picking up from Hanley's, because they had everything.
Funny, I just saw in one of my comic book groups on Facebook, someone published a scan of Roy Thomas's review of Fantastic Four #1 from Rocket Blast Collector or whatever it was in. I was like, oh, like a review from Roy Thomas of FF #1 as it came out. It's like, huh.
I've tried looking for Rocket's Blast, but it doesn't seem to be all scanned, so it's just a few. It's not even whole magazines, like articles here and there. They're scanned.
Okay.
And Alter Ego, the original Alter Ego is the same. But prozines like Marvel Mania are entirely scanned.
Mm-hmm.
The thing about these is that they might as well be scanned because nobody's actually going to make money off of them. So it's not a case of keeping the copyrights.
Yeah. Mm. They're more historical documents than intellectual property.
Right.
Because there's no money to be made selling them.
Not at all. You know, it's just a nice look to the fandom of that time period, because that was the only information you would get.
Well, I'm sure some of them are worth money, but the thing is, if you're only buying them to keep them, to store them, they are actually worthless because you can't see the actual articles inside. Yeah, and those are the things that are actually worth anything, but they're not worth money. They're worth knowledge.
Yeah.
Let's see, what do we have here? I still have some of the comic lists that I mailed off to buy comics from ads in the 70s. Ah, the lists. Yeah, that's cool. Got to meet Bud Plant last year in Oklahoma at the OFCon. Eric P. I wish I'd kept some of the comic shop news from the 90s and at least some of the ads and materials from my 80s, 90s LCS. Yeah, like I said, I wish I had kept more Xeroxes and stuff from my days at Marvel. That's really what I wish I had more of, but like it'd be flooded in paper.
Completely. I got so 5 Xerox. I got 5 FedEx boxes full of Xeroxes that are no particular order. You know, sometimes they would just, make a copy of something that was cool. And again,
and you could have easily had 50 boxes.
Completely easily, very easily had 50 boxes. And still, that would, because the boxes I do have, it's only a few months out of the 10 years I was there.
Yeah.
Because it's not like it's even a snapshot of a particular era. It was just that what I happened to copy, what I happened to bring home, and I happened to put into a box. So it's like, I should have just made sure they were all covers. That would have been easier. That would have been at least a order.
You've got no order.
No order at all, or anything really completed. Maybe one issue of the Fantastic Four is completed of a Mike Wirango issue, and
just random pages that you liked.
Random pages that I liked, that some are in pencils and in inks. And I still got to track it down. I don't know if I have a full copy of that Hulk story from Barry Windsor Smith. I have copies of it, before it became Monster. I think it's what it eventually became, but when it was when it was still the Hulk story. But one of these days, I gotta get a scanner and just scan them all in, just to have it digitized.
Yeah. I scanned in all the paper I have and all the paper Ed Murr had too. One day, he came down and just scanned it away. Just scan it away. Mm-hmm. Zoom, zoom, zoom. You got 11x17 scanner, makes things easier.
Yeah, I need to, because I went through 2 of them. I went through 2 of the I forget. I think it was an Epson one. It was the one that all the artists had for a short time. The Mustec.
The cheap one.
The cheap one, but man, did I make that work. And it was mainly because that was all manga, because I had to, at my early manga days, I had to cut the pages out of the book.
Right.
Scan it at 1200 DPI. It was in black and white.
Mm-hmm.
Strip out the old lettering and replace it with the new lettering. Once those mangas went digital, it was like, oh, they made it easier for me, but man, did they cut the pay so much.
That Mustec couldn't even scan at 1200. It was all interpolated.
Mm-hmm.
Which means it just made it up.
Yeah. But it worked for what I needed it for.
Yeah. Let's see. The easiest thing to still find is old comics journals, at least around here. Fun to see them discussing the comics biz back in the 70s and 80s. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are the comic shop news lists going to do a collection of Stan Lee strips? I don't know. They're doing a the Spider-Man ones. They're doing an artist edition of the John Romita Spider-Man strips. I don't know about anything after that. My comic shop doesn't get comic shop news in anymore, so I haven't seen it in a while, and they haven't run the the strip since it ended. They have 20 years plus. Yeah, but they only licensed those. They
Yeah,
don't
those
own
are the strips that originally ran in the newspaper.
I
I
love the New
picked up.
England Comics newsletters that I got in the mail starting in '86. That must have been fun. I've reacquired most of them on eBay, but not yet the first tick appearance in NEC newsletters. 14, 15, and 16. Pricey. Wow. Found the Marvel superhero black and white pictures of people in costumes that was sent out to TV stations to promo the cartoon. Wow.
That's pretty cool. I don't think I've ever saw
something
those.
I didn't know existed.
Mm-hmm. So I did pick up a comic shop news this week.
Oh, there you go.
And no, it does not have. It has an article about the Roger Corman Fantastic Four.
I remember when those guys showed up to the bullpen.
Oh yeah,
really?
I wasn't there for that.
94, right?
Yeah, I think so. Right around then, and no one cared. It was kind of like a little disappointing. That could be the story of the bullpen a lot of times. So and so showed up to the bullpen and nobody cared.
Yeah.
Once it was Ralph Macchio, and who showed up to the bullpen were the band members of Foreigner. And he's like, "Hey, buddy, it's Foreigner," and there's like crickets. Nobody cared.
You know,
okay.
They could have shown up at any magazine on the planet, and nobody, even a music magazine, and nobody would care.
Yeah, but when Guar showed up, everybody was like, "Oh, it's Guar."
I missed all of those. The only one I was ever there for was Jerry Seinfeld. He walked
I was never there for that
because
he was dating someone.
He was dating somebody that was working on the 10th floor, and I think
is that why he pretended to like comics?
He liked comics before her, or at least said he liked. He was a Superman guy, allegedly. But the only reason why he was at Marvel was for the fact that his girlfriend was there. I was there for the actor Mark Leonard, the actor that played Spock's father. He came by to sign some Malibu comic books. Because
Hulk Hogan, I was there for.
I wasn't there for Hulk Hogan. I wasn't there for. There was another band. Was it White
Sebastian Bach?
Sebastian
I didn't
Bach.
know who Sebastian Bach was.
Mm-hmm. So
from Skid Row, they had to explain. I'm like, everybody, who's Sebastian Bach's here? Sebastian Bach's here. I'm like, who's Sebastian Bach?
He's a 19th century classical music composer. That would have been fun. The 18th century classical music composer is here.
It's amazing. He took Doom's time machine.
You don't look a day over 120.
Those were the only ones that I recall being there for. And then for me, it was like any other comic book artist would come in would be the celebrity guest star that came in for me. But other than that, no one else that I could recall off the top of my head.
I want an artist edition of the DC house ads from the 80s. Did the band Monster Magnet ever show up in the 90s? I don't think so. Not that I know of.
Not that I'm aware of.
I don't even know who the band Monster Magnet is. I just remember Guar showing up. Actually, I wasn't there when Guar showed up, but there was so much buzz around it for a week. I was like, And there's, of course, pictures of everybody with Guar.
Right. Even I knew who Guar is, and I wasn't there for that. Oh.
That was like the highlight of that month, whenever it was. Let's see. Let me show off a comic I got this week. Let's show off Our Bones Dust, which I think is only a 3-issue mini. And this is issue 2, if I remember correctly. It's got some nice post-apocalyptic desert artwork.
Yeah, very European.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much so. And it's kind of thin on story.
It's got a lot of stuff going on in it. I should say it's thin on plot because it takes place in the post-apocalypse. Who does it? It's Ben Stack, story and art, Dave Stewart, colorist, and Russ Wu-Tan, lettering and logo design. So it's a Ben Stenbeck joint. See that right there? That's an alien. This right here is sort of our star, who's kind of like Commandy, the last boy on Earth, except there's other people on Earth, but he's on his own solo. And there's just like gangs of people, wandering the badlands looking for stuff to eat and drink. And they're also cannibals. There's so little to eat, they'll eat you. And if you start getting old and sick, they'll eat you. So there's one guy they got with this one gang who's missing his arm because they ate his arm. He's their walking food for now because he's old and sick. Meanwhile, there's this alien running around who's like surveying Earth, and he like gives them all a protein bar if he can tag them. So he can keep track of where they go, so they can keep track of what's going on Earth. But then some weird things happen where there's this monster. Where's the monster? Who I think is part of this black thing with all the claws is the monster. He's part of some defense mechanism for some old corporation that doesn't exist anymore. But he's roaming around killing things. So we got, the Commandy kid running around trying to survive. We've got the gang chasing him. We've got the monster going around looking to kill whoever it can kill. And we've got the alien trying to peacefully figure out everything, peacefully monitor it all. And then it's just like chasing. There's, like I said, there's not much of a plot. There's just sort of those four elements mixing together rather than an actual plot. But it's pretty well, like I said, I like the artwork. It's pretty well done. Oh, there's our last boy on Earth on the back. It's sort of one of these, you just know that whoever this is, Ben Stenbeck, has like this big, huge ideas in mind for this world, but this is just like one small part of it kind of thing. What was your biggest disappointment in meeting a comic book legend in your experiences? I have to tell you that most of us in the bullpen didn't want to meet many people. We actually went out of our way to avoid, like there were some people who everybody met and liked, like John Buscema, everybody loved. But so many people, like, I find it funny now, all this fighting that's going on the internet. Oh, Dan Slott insulted me. Oh, Mark Waid insulted me. This guy insulted me. That guy insulted me. It's like, that's comics. we actually avoided meeting people because we didn't want their work ruined for us. I mean, sure, we did meet a lot of people. That's true, too. But we also were like, it's okay. I don't have to meet that guy.
I was in more of a unique position. So
right, you had to meet everybody.
I had to meet everybody. So
it was your job.
Yes, exactly. So since it was my job to meet everybody, I never had a real disappointment. When I was an intern and not knowing the legend of Steve Ditko, I did show up as an intern because I heard he was in the building, and I had a Masterworks, a Spider-Man Masterworks, and I asked for his autograph before I even knew anything about him as a person who didn't do signings and stuff like that. Like, right. I knew of Steve Ditko only from the comic book, but there was no, at that time, 94, so between 1984 and 1994, for those 10 years, I never read anything about Steve Ditko other than the characters he created.
Right.
I didn't know anything about his philosophies, his viewpoints. No idea. I didn't
think I knew either.
Yeah. So it was that he didn't do autographs. He doesn't do signings. So when I asked him, hey, would you mind? I explained who I was. He says, I don't do that. I was like, okay. no problem. Eventually, when I was working in art returns, I do have a letter from him, so I have a signature in that kind of a way. So that was like the only person that is like I asked for a signature, I didn't get it. Anybody else, I got it. I've never had really any disappointed experiences with the artists themselves, but I've had a few run-ins with people who represented them. So for people who don't know, I did art returns. I returned all the original artwork back to the artist. After the comic books were printed, the artwork needed to be signed what was called an artwork release form, which basically said the artwork belongs to you as a gift being sent back to the artist, but it really belongs to Marvel.
Yeah.
Again, is Marvel's protecting itself from the artist taking all the artwork and printing their own comic books? Apparently that was a fear for a while. So again, to get the artwork, you had to sign this form. Some artists had art reps or people that sometimes the artwork would go to, and the reps would sell the art. So in some cases, the artist will sign it and then it will be mailed to the art rep, stuff like that. And had a run-in with the guy who represented Barry Windsor Smith. He called up one day looking for a piece of artwork. Barry stopped sending artwork to Marvel. He started sending Xerox copies.
Yeah.
That he would white out this one piece and go, here, now this is an original, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So he called up and they were looking for some covers that were done. And it's like, oh, those covers... okay, we have one of those covers. We have the Deadpool one. That's still here. We mailed them an artwork release form. And it's like, what do you mean an artwork release form? As if he never heard of it. It's like, this is already 10 years into me working this job. I've dealt with this man before. I've dealt with Barry. I dealt with his rep, who's not really a rep. It's a lawyer friend of his.
Uh-huh.
And so he wanted the artwork back as soon as possible. It's like, yeah, when the release form is signed, you'll get the artwork back. And it was the only time I ever lost my cool on the phone with somebody, because he was like, he started yelling, that's not the way it works, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, you know what? I lost my cool. I yelled at him back at his phone. And I told him, if your artist wants his artwork back, that has to be signed. I don't want to hear from anybody anymore. And I hung up the phone. Joe Quesada was the editor-in-chief, so I went to him to let him know what happened, because he'll probably get a call, and this is what happened. And then I believe, I could only guess, Joe yelled at him too. Because eventually the guy called back, and it's like, I'd like to apologize. Please send me this artwork release form so we could get it signed and sent back to you. And they were looking for artwork that didn't exist because they only sent in a photocopy.
Ah.
And it's like, Barry has the original art. I don't know what his file system is, but you're calling up and asking for a Xerox copy. It's ridiculous. And then to spend 20 minutes or so on the phone on a guy who's just doing his job. And
we don't keep track of Xerox copies.
Exactly. And that was the thing. And it was like, Jack Kirby didn't have a problem signing the release forms, because we had release forms signed by him before I was there, because we kept all release forms. Steve Ditko didn't have, every artist didn't have a problem signing the forms. This one guy, I'm there 10 years, and this is the one guy who, and it wasn't Barry. I had no problem with Barry. It was the guy representing him.
Well, the artists all had to be nice to you. You're the one who sent their art back.
Yeah, exactly. And I did.
You didn't get to see any of their bad side. I can remember one time. What didn't happen to me, it happened to Bunch, our friend Bunch. It was when he was new there, so it must have been 1990 or so. And he actually got Steve Ditko's autograph on a piece of paper, though, not on a comic.
Okay.
Because Bunch is an autograph collector, right? So when he first started at Marvel, he would get people's autographs, usually on those scrap pieces of Bristol. So those little, 5.5 by 11 sheets of paper, he would. There you go. There's one of them right there. He still has one all these years later. Mine are used up.
I still have a stack about that much left. Good stack.
Well, he used to get people's autographs on these. Okay, and he actually Jack Abel sat next to me. So I was here looking at the bullpen at a drawing table. Jack Abel had a desk next to me down below. And Steve Ditko came by to talk to Jack. So he and Jack were talking. And that's when Bunch came over and asked Ditko for his autograph. Once again, I don't even know. I knew nothing about Steve Ditko and autographs in 1990. I'd never heard that.
Yeah.
But Steve Ditko kind of hesitated for a second, and he looked over at Jack, and Jack gave him the high sign. So he signed the piece of paper and gave it to Bunch. But I think it was I wasn't there for this incident, just the aftermath, because none of you guys know Steve Bunch, but he was kind of he's one of the nicest guys in the world. He's kind of everybody's friend. And especially in the early 90s, he was like a social and educational hub in Marvel and comics. He had a vast library and knowledge of pop culture. So anybody who came into Marvel who wanted to talk about any pop culture thing would go over to Bunch's desk. Anybody who needed reference would go over to Bunch's desk. So he's one of my friends who's kind of like a bellwether to me. He's one of those friends who it's like, if somebody's mean to him, that gives me pause. I'm like, what's up with that guy? If you're mean to me, I don't care. I mean, I'm not as beloved as Bunch. So, I know I rub some people the wrong way. They're going to be me. That's fine. I'm not a bellwether. But Bunch, if I see somebody being mean to Bunch, I'm like, oh, that guy's no good. And most people are like that. Most people are like, if you were mean to Bunch, and I think it was who was it? Oh God, I can picture him. Who did Static Shock?
Wayne McDuffie?
No, not McDuffie, the artist. Oh, was it? Oh, almost. I can picture his face. His name ran right. Artist from the
John Paulo?
80s and 90s. Did a lot of the. He was one of the main guys behind. Kevin Nolan's name is in my head, but it's not him.
Larry Stroman?
No, it wasn't Stroman. It doesn't matter. But anyway,
it was a bunch of people.
Was upset because this guy told him he was a professional now, so he shouldn't be asking people for his autographs. He chided Bunch for that, and it was just like Bunch was just like, "What? F you?" He didn't like him after that the whole time, and I was just like, I don't think he actually said F you. It's what's his name?
Dennis.
Not a bad guy. Dennis Cowan.
Yeah,
it was Dennis Cowan, I think, is who it was. And Bunch was like mad at Dennis Cowan for ages for that.
It wasn't until I got to work in the industry where I was able to get autographs.
Same with Bunch.
Yeah, my first one was Adam West, because believe it or not, in '94 he did not have a line in San Diego Comic-Con. Right. And that was probably because right next to him was Julie Newmar and Vivian Crick. So so they had huge lines, but Adam West didn't. So I got to meet him. It cost me like $25 to get his autograph. And it was
Bunch would he'd hear someone was at Marvel, so he'd go and get his autograph. Because he was an autograph. He liked collecting autographs.
Yeah. And again, it's like, to me, it was like I did not get, before I worked at Marvel, I didn't even get a comic book autographed because I didn't even go to a comic book show yet. So I didn't even know they existed. The only time I ever had gotten an autograph was maybe 1 or 2 books, because my local comic shop that I was going to, Amazing Tales, when I was going to Dobbs Ferry in college, Amazing Tales had like 2 events, and they had a couple of comic books signed. and that was after the events that I got there. So it was like, so the event had happened. They had 1 or 2 comics. It was the very first digital comic, which was that Iron Man, I think, Crash, and then there was a Batman digital one.
Right.
I forget which one came first, but I had gotten the Batman one. It was already signed, so the shop was just selling the signed books that they had bought extra of. But that was the only thing I ever had signed before. Once I got to Marvel, I used to bring stack of books with me and get stuff signed. You know, I would go to John Romita Sr.'s office and it's like, you know, can I get these 2 books signed? And I, because he would say, yeah, people would bring stacks. Don't worry about it. It's like, no, I just brought the 2 books because I didn't want to be a bother.
John Romita, he was another bellwether for everybody at Marvel.
Oh, yeah.
If you were nasty to John Romita, nobody liked you. And guess who was nasty to John Romita?
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't there to witness it, only the aftermath. But of course, Rob Liefeld. One day they had a bunch of those guys. I forget who was in, Liefeld, and maybe they were in from the West Coast or something. Of course, before they left Marvel. And they had John Romita wanted to, you know, show them all how to do things, I guess. And Rob Liefeld did not take well to that and was a jerk to John Romita. And that's all you heard for a month afterwards. If you think Rob Liefeld wasn't well liked before then, after then, he still sure wasn't. But that, like I said, I never met him. I wasn't there to witness it. I just witnessed the afterwards when nobody had a nice word to say about him for about a month.
I only met him at Marvel once. He came by, said hi, and that was pretty much it. I didn't have artwork for him. This was during the time that he got in. It was in the middle of them getting that Heroes Reborn set of books.
Right.
And so for those who don't know, at Marvel, we were free to decorate our doors any way we wanted to. And we would post stuff up. And these were memes before they were memes. We didn't post stuff up on the internet. Things would be posted on the door, and stuff would be posted, like letters from fans would be posted up, illustrations. On my door, Smitty, who was my intern at the time, took a cover, cut out a piece, and then drew a caricature hanging out. So he drew a character eating Jell-O, but the Jell-O was Baron Zemo's head, drawn by Rob Liefeld, and it was called Baron Jell-O. It's just a funny joke, but it was the way Rob drew Baron Zemo, and Smitty drew this great piece. And right before Rob showed up, that disappeared off my door. Ralph Macchio's door was notorious for just having tons of stuff. And I think it was all the Image Guy stuff. When Rob came to visit, that door was just, they didn't even take this stuff down. They removed this door and put it into my library just so they could hide the door somewhere.
Yeah, I remember things being taken down when certain people showed up.
Yeah.
That was a fairly common occurrence in those days. See what people are saying. I'm back. What did I miss? I need Monster Magnet in the chat. Sorry, don't even know. Talking about bands visiting the bullpen. Spine of God is an album I still listen to. I guess there's Monster Magnet fans out there. I was a big comic fan, so that makes sense. I mentioned Monster Magnet because pre-MM band Shrapnel were in a comic book. One of my favorite lessons, remove the door. One of my favorite early 90s when Marvel did a bunch of custom comics. Who was it? They did one for Booyah Tribe. That was it. I don't know if I met them or not, but I remember their comic because the comic ended with the moral of the comic was, who says violence doesn't solve anything? The Booyah Tribe got violent and solved their problem. the comic booky way.
Did not meet them. I was there during the Marvel Music stuff. I was interning and working in the publicity department, so I met KRS-One. So he did a comic. There was a comic called Break the Chain that came with a disc. I'm not a disc, a cassette. 2 members of Kiss. So it was Gene Simmons and Ace Frehley. So
I cannot for the life of me remember if I actually met Gene Simmons or not. How crazy is that? I did work for him in the bullpen. They called me in special to get some work done on a project of his, but I can't remember if I met him or not.
I don't believe he came to the office. So he was at the New York Comic Con, and then we had an after party at Polyesters. I don't recall seeing you there.
Yeah, I wasn't. It would have been at the office at this time.
Okay, so yeah, so they did not come to the office, even though we were doing Marvel Music stuff. Because I know there was at least
a special project with them. It may have been after Marvel Music.
Okay,
either way, I can't remember.
They did Kiss Nation with Marvel, which was a book series, not series, but there was a big book deal going on. I don't think Marvel did it, but Marvel had some sort of connection, kind of a thing with them. And then when we had them at the Marvel booth a couple of times, and what was kind of cool is that Gene was, hard into comics, so he did like a trivia thing, and no one could stump him. He had all the answers to it.
So John Buscema was yeah. He looks intimidating in pictures.
Oh, he was a big guy, but like a big bear.
Yeah, I never really talked to him besides hi, hello, but I know a bunch of people in the bullpen, whenever he'd show up, would sit and talk to him for quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
Jim Hostin always went and talked to him. Bunch always went and talked to him. There's a few people I know who always like, John Buscema's here. I got to go talk to him.
Right.
He was always very nice.
We have a media. He was a media personality for a while. A guy named here in Portugal named Rui Zinc, and he's part of the comic book crowd because he got a doctorate in comics. Has done a few graphic novels, but one day he had a panel at the Amadora Festival, and I didn't ask him any questions because I didn't have any opinion on it. But since they were talking about innovation in comics, he said there was no innovation in comics anywhere on the planet except Canada. And when talking about once during his presentation, he actually did this when talking about something, and I was like, "What the?" Because he has a very low opinion of anyone who he deems less smart than him, and he always thinks he's the smartest guy in the room. And then there was another time, and I wasn't there for it, and I sure would have loved to see that, because in our monthly comics dinner parties, I didn't go to that one, and 2 people wanted to beat the crap out of him in the restaurant.
I've noticed that quite often the guy who thinks he's the smartest guy in the room is not even close. He's used to being by himself and being the smartest guy in the room. That's why one thing in Marvel, when it comes to comic books, there was never anybody who knew the most, because there was always somebody in the next room who knew more than you about any particular subject in comic books. You might think you know the most about comic books, but the guy in the next room, wrote 50 issues of that comic book you think you know everything about. And the guy in the room, across the way, has read all those issues and edited half of them. So it's like there was never a smartest guy in the room about comics ever at Marvel, because there was too many people who knew too much stuff.
Yeah. I thought I knew stuff, and it's like, nope.
Yeah.
I only scratched a bit of it. I mean, I'm still learning stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like I don't even call myself an expert on anything, because there's always things new or different or changing, or I don't do like trivia stuff, because I cannot be put on the spot. If we're just talking and blah, 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 it's like, I think that was issue, whatever. As soon as pressure is put on, it's like everything goes out of my head. There's no information, even the simplest things just goes away. And it's like, no. But when we're just talking here and there, it's like completely different.
Hey, guys, rules. Yeah, all you take my orders. I rule.
You are now the smartest guy in the room.
Yeah, you got to be careful, Marl. There's always, like I said, it was just like, and it was all overlapping too.
Yeah,
it was like, this guy knows the most about this guy, and Bunch knew tons. Like Bunch was the pop culture guru, and to say pop culture is misleading, because it really wasn't pop culture. It was geek culture.
Yeah,
which some of has become
everything.
Pop culture, but he didn't know anything about what was going on in pop culture of TV and top 40 radio. He knew everything about Japanese comics and American comics and European comics and this and that and the other. He didn't know anything about pro wrestling. There was other guys for that. So really, everybody called it pop culture, but it was more like geek culture, especially then. So it was like people would come from far and wide to consult with Bunch about some subject, and he'd always reach down under his back of his desk and pull out a book on the subject. You'd be like, I didn't know that book existed.
And I could agree what you said is like he's like a nexus person there, because again, the whole being someone that was likable to everyone. I'm still in contact with just a handful of my interns that I had at Marvel, and I went through many of them. And it's funny, you either remember the really good ones or the really bad ones. And I'm still in touch with many of the good ones. And he's somebody, Bunch's name in conversation would always pop up, and it's like, how's Bunch doing? Have you spoken to him? Kind of a thing, because there was that connection, because one guy loved hanging out with Bunch and talking to Bunch because of Bunch's knowledge of Godzilla.
Right.
And then another one would like Bunch because of his knowledge of Japanese cinema. That wasn't even superhero stuff. It could be samurai stuff. It's that he had
horror movies
knowledge. Yeah, horror movies and stuff like that, or Japanese horror movies.
Right.
And things like that, or obscure stuff too. Because I think that's why you can't even say pop culture, because pop culture is popular.
Right.
Things that would be cult classics and stuff like that. There's only a few people are aware of, and he fits that kind of
I can remember when I got what League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, the Black Dossier. What, it came out like 15 years ago now. And I read it and enjoyed it. And I probably got a quarter of the references in it, because it's all about British pop culture figures. And Bunch explained to me what each and every pop culture figure was in the book. I was just like, oh, okay. Because he knows British pop culture too. He's a big fan of.
Right.
So in Volume 2, when they visit the island, the Dr. Moreau's island, you didn't recognize Rupert the Bear?
No, there was a lot of stuff I didn't recognize in that. I mean, which is good that I didn't have to actually recognize it to enjoy it. But there was tons of stuff. I was just like, oh, I know this is a reference to something.
No,
I just don't know it.
Yeah, even I recognize some stuff that I'm not supposed to. I mean, there they go in Black Dossier when they're talking about 1948, and then there's the guy dressed as the kid from Just William. And I'm like, what?
I may have gotten the Island of Dr. Moreau reference, because whatever that was, because that one's sort of broad enough that I may have, but I don't even remember.
They go to Dr. Moreau's, to the island of Dr. Moreau, and they're greeted by a bear, and it's Rupert the Bear.
I probably didn't get the bear reference for sure. But yeah, that was he knows a lot of stuff about a lot of stuff. Like I said, he sometimes calls himself the pop culture Ronin too for the freelance work. But like I said, it's not really pop culture. It's bunch culture.
Mm-hmm.
It's niche culture.
Yeah, definitely niche.
Big fan of the TV show The Avengers back before everybody knew it. Hello, Paulo. Are you still in touch with Bunch? Yes, still in touch with Bunch. Unfortunately, he's waiting for a kidney transplant. He's been on dialysis for 2 or 3 years now. I can't remember.
About 2 years. I think it's hitting 3.
Yeah. And it's Bunch with an E at the end. I read that 6 months ago and picked up about half of the references. I don't even know if I got half. I just remember Bunch explaining a lot of stuff to me that I did not get. Is Bunch still with us? He's still with us. But like I said, he's waiting for a kidney transplant. He was also, after getting laid off at Marvel in the bullpen, he went over to DC's bullpen, and then he became an assistant editor.
Mm-hmm. I believe on the Vertigo books.
The Vertigo books, Why the Last Man, he was the assistant editor. You can find his name in them, and some of the Grant Morrison stuff. And he eventually got fired from DC, and he is one of these people who, if you ask him his opinion, he gives it to you. And bosses don't like that. So he eventually did not get along with his bosses because they kept asking his opinion and he kept giving it to them. And his opinion was the work wasn't very good. It could be improved. So that eventually put him on the outs with the Vertigo people. And they fired him. But it was just like, Bunch, don't you know? They just want to hear, yeah, sure, it's great. But that wasn't him.
Right.
He might still be there if he knew how to say, yeah, sure, it's great. But that's not him.
In case you want to know all of the references in League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, Jess Nevins put out 3 books, fairly thick, about Volume 1, Volume 2, and Black Dossier. Nevins is a librarian, and I actually met him online because he was also on the Marvel News Group, on the West Coast Avengers mailing list, and on the Marvel Volume 1 fanfic project. And Nevins is a librarian, and he had some very cool websites about Golden Age superheroes and about Victorian fiction. He had a catalog of heroes with entries. So this was way before Wikipedia. Still during still when dial-up was common, and him putting out all of that stuff on the internet was like the beginning of the internet. The internet is a source of geek information, very as complete as possible.
I'll have to post for you guys. If anyone else wants it, Bunch did in the probably from 93, 94, 95. I don't remember when he got fired. He used to do these cartoon movie reviews. Where he would just
one page.
What was that?
It depends on the review. They would be 1 page to a bunch of pages.
Right. And they would just be passed around Marvel. He eventually put them all together in the Bunch bathroom companion. He'd draw cartoons and review the movie with the cartoon, as in cartoon form. And they were really good.
Yeah.
And he eventually put them all together in one big Xeroxed book that only got passed around Marvel. But I've over the years scanned it all in and made it into a PDF. So I'm going to have to post the PDF for people to read if they want to read some cartoon movie reviews from the mid-90s. Some funny stuff in there.
I would need to get it because my copy is incomplete.
Okay.
The back pages are gone. I don't know what happened. That the copy I end up having.
I think I have it posted on Dropbox. I'll have to look up what the link is because I don't know. I haven't seen it in a while. Wonder if I can post it in the chat. Let me see. Where is Dropbox? Because I know he won't care. Let's see. I don't know. I used to have a bunch of Dropboxes because I would be using all the free ones. Oh, there it is. Let me copy that link. Go back to StreamYard. Let me see if I can post it in here. There we go. There's a link to my Dropbox so you can download the PDF from there. If it doesn't actually make a link, you can probably copy and paste it. Movie review bathroom companion.
Yeah, I had to copy and paste it for it to work.
Yeah, because I don't think it makes live links. Let's see if we get some balloons going. Come on, double thumbs up. Peace.
But the YouTube has been going down the tubes because you used to be able to post links if you were the stream's owner, and now
you would think the host could post a link, but no. Oh, and let's show you what came out this week too. The Savage Dragon 30th anniversary issue, 100-page special with a marriage.
I missed that.
And tons of sex in this issue. The link worked on this end. Good. So now you can read El Buncho's Bathroom Movie Review Companion. This is a marriage between these two characters whose names I forget. Let's see here. But the issue was actually like a history of their sex life. So there was sex in it. And it was pretty amusing. The hiss and the groom starts. The groom keeps going. Can we not go over this? Can we leave this alone? But then I like the letters page. Where do we go? At the end, it says. I mean, in the letters page, which is after the main story, which isn't. The main story is a regular issue. Then there's another. 70 pages. I don't know. This was supposed to mark the 30th anniversary of the ongoing Savage Dragon, but I'm running a little late due to extenuating circumstances. So instead, random jumbo issue. Enjoy. So then we get a 2-part North Forest story. He probably had these in inventory for backup things. Then we get a random 3 Dragon Kids story. Then we get, I don't know where this is reprinted from, Vanguard Deadline, but this is and it's made to look old, but I think it's also an Eric Larson story from the 80s. So
yeah,
I think
he posted something about he found it and he was like, oh, let me color it. And so it was like something that he recently posted about it.
So it's a long story. It's 3 issues. Megaton. That's this guy's name. Where he fights. And this is Paul Dragon who's in it, who was the Savage Dragon before the Image era Savage Dragon. He was his 80s Savage Dragon. So he doesn't have the big fin on his head. He's got the little fin.
Yeah, I think he printed, because I've seen that picture before, and I think that was printed in the early years of Image. He did like a 3-issue miniseries.
A special where he reprinted this stuff. And it must have ran in black and white. But if he distressed the pages to make it look like old comic book printing. But you could still read it. That's what was good. He didn't distress it too much, like Ed Piskor did. So it was a fun to read this old story. But I wonder what he planned for it, that this took its place because he couldn't get it done. But it was, $10 issue, I think it was, for 100 pages. Only 2 covers. But yeah, 30 years of Savage Dragon. Fin Addicts. Random jumbo issue. Enjoy. So if you want a random jumbo issue of Savage Dragon with lots of sex in the lead story.
I'd rather have a random jumbo shrimp, pan fried.
Not me. I don't like seafood.
With sweet and sour hot sauce.
I don't like anything that tastes like oceany, fishy.
It's pan fried. It tastes like pan fried now.
Make me a lot like that. Savage should reboot to resolve the storyline. Yeah, let me.
No, they already did. They already did that. They had a Crisis on Infinite Earths a few years back on Savage Dragon. That's why 80s Dragon is in the regular universe now.
I just posted the link to Bunch's thing in our Cavern of Chaos group too, so you can download it from there easier.
Who also appears regularly on Savage Dragon? Captain Tootsie.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, right. And he was from like a Tom McCann ad from 75 years ago or something.
Yeah,
I can't remember. Was it Tom McCann?
I don't know. It was those some kind of fruit rolls. Fruit roll.
No, I don't think it was. I think it was shoes.
Tootsie Rolls.
No, it wasn't Tootsie Rolls.
It was Tootsie Rolls.
Remember. I could be completely wrong.
That's why it's Captain Tootsie.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, it was Tootsie Rolls. Says. I just have random sex instead. How making me hungry. Can I just have random? You can. Go right ahead. I'm on a seafood diet these days. I see food, I eat it. Tootsie Roll. Okay, so Captain Tootsie was Tootsie Rolls. I'm thinking of Tom McCann used to have I think he had Buster Brown Tootsie shoes.
I remember Buster Brown.
Here's Buster Brown. He lives in a shoe. Here's his dog Ty. He lives in there too. I think they used to give the comics away at the shoe store.
Oh, was that the March of Heroes?
I don't remember.
But there was a shoe store. I saw it on the Green Comics database. Something from Dell or Western. I think it was the March of Heroes.
The March of Heroes.
No, not like. No, wait a second. That's not it.
They had Captain Tootsie, who was public domain. Who I didn't realize that Doc Savage's costume was based on Captain Tootsie.
Really? That I didn't know.
Yeah. What? Yeah. I read that. I read that when he was talking about Captain Tootsie. Tom McCann giveaway Buster Brown comics. Yeah. Any Reed Ripper Slab? I got some Doc. Yeah, Doc Samson was based on Captain Tootsie. Did I say Doc Samson or Doc someone else? The one from the Hulk, psychiatrist.
You said
Doc Savage?
Yeah, Man of Bronze. I was like, really?
Okay, sorry about that. I misspoke. Doc Samson. You say these docs and they all blend together. I got some Reed Rippin' Slabs ready to go. Let's see. Well, we're going to pick 1964 Charlton.
Ooh, okay.
Let's see here. Present hums. There we go. 1964 August, Charlton. We got Black Fury, Wyatt Earp, and the Fighting Marines. And is it me or does that horse just look a little weird somehow?
It looks slightly odd. I'm not sure what it is.
I don't know a lot about horse anatomy, but that neck looks long.
Yeah, and why does he have the front quarters together like that, as if he's Zorak?
And the back legs, I don't know if they bend that way. Wow, I just noticed Wyatt Earp, that cowboy. It looks like a penis, doesn't
it? Yep.
Yeah. All right. So I think I got it. I'm going.
At least the Marines are wholesome, just shooting people.
Yeah. I'm going to rip Black Fury because that dialogue on the cover
classic gay male comic.
The dialogue on the cover offends my intelligence. I'm going to slab Wyatt Earp because people will ask me about it. If I display it, people will ask me about it.
One guilty man.
And I'm going to read Fighting Marines because I want to know if they actually get out of there alive.
But we'll never get out of here alive. I would also slab Wyatt Earp. It's just a great cover.
It's a dad bod horse.
I would read Black Fury because I'm curious enough to know why the horse is like that.
I like the way the horse is in a V of lightning.
Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, that means I have to rip up the Marines. Of course.
That way you'll never know if they get out of there alive.
Well, once you rip it, you can still read the comic. It's ripped. I think I would replace the horse itself with the dolphin.
Mm.
Same pose and everything, menacing. And I would have the flamingos watching the Marines. They want to know also what would happen to the Marines. But that Black Fury cover is just, I don't know if it's because of the logo or the coloring. It's just a bad looking cover.
62 Lefty Blues wants to slab Wyatt, read Marines, rip Black Fury, and dolphin Wyatt Earp guns. No, so he's reaching for two dolphins.
I agree with Wilson on Black Fury with the dolphin replacing the horse, but the flamingos are going to be perched on Wyatt Earp's guns.
Sleepy wants to slab the Marines, read Black Fury, rip Wyatt Earp. I know not. I'm going to rip Wyatt Earp because I think I can rip it right down the middle. I think that's symmetrical, and I can just but down his back, right between his. I think I can get that right in the middle, and somehow that appeals to me.
Dr. Von Chilo would love that Wyatt Earp cover because it's perfectly centered.
Then I'm going to slab Black Fury because there's something about that horse I like. It's like dancing or something. It's not a real horse.
It's just
there's
the way
something
his
about
hands
it
are together. It's like the more I look at it, it's like I'm fascinated by it.
Yeah, that's why I'm slamming it. Somehow I'm fascinated. I'm trying to figure out what's going on with that horse. And I guess I'm reading Fighting Marines. Let's see what Mind the Comics is doing. He's reading the Marines, slabbing Earp, ripping Black Fury, Dolphin, the middle soldier in Marine. See, I was going to Dolphin the back soldier in Marines. So there's a soldier, so there's a dolphin in the background looking away, firing a gun. He's going to dolphin the middle one. Flamingos roasting on a stick over the fire in fury. See, I'm going to put the flamingos right on the horse's mane. They're going to be standing up there, rearing up with the horse. Going, geez, what's going on here?
I feel like that Black Fury cover is missing its black plate. I don't know what it is about that cover. It's like it looks like it's missing because you can see right through the black. There's it's just weird.
Did Paulo look up who drew these?
I didn't, but let's find out. So let's see. Black Fury 49.
I wonder if Wyatt Earp is John Severin. Did he
Fury
ever work
49?
for Charlton? I don't even know.
Black Fury is tentatively credited to Dick Giordano. It definitely
Dick Giordano. I can see it in the inking.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So it's probably from his studio.
The Black Fury is very Tom Scioli looking.
Okay, so Wyatt Earp 55.
Wyatt Earp, Frontier Marshal. One guilty man.
That's Giordano.
That's Giordano too. Okay.
Giordano was editor-in-chief.
So he got to draw the covers when he wanted to.
Yeah. Chief's prerogative. And Fighting Marines number 60. That is Dick Giordano as well.
3 for 3. Dick Giordano. Look at that.
Seriously? Dude, lay off.
He must have been busy in April 1964, let's say, drawing covers.
Giordano also drew the main story in Wyatt Earp in Fighting Marines, but not in Black Fury. That was drawn by one of the Charles Nicholases. You know, there were 3 Charles Nicholases in the Golden and Silver Age.
He was handing himself out assignments. Do you think he waited till his editor-in-chief day was over to start drawing those, or was he just drawing them on company time? I'm betting he was drawing them on company time.
What? Like Stan Lee.
Oh, by the way, that also reminded me. Let me see if I can get this on my iPad. I think I saved a screenshot of it just because it amused me so much. Let me put these down. Something from Kickstarter came across my feed, and it was the Age of Comics role game. Play the role of a comics publisher in like the 1940s. I'm like, what? See how many artists you can rip off? What kind of crazy game is this?
I'm very tempted to try it.
I don't know who that is. Jack Kirby over there?
That's like it.
That's the board. Let's see. Hire.
You're hired.
Develop.
In the 40s?
I don't know why there's a little token with a gun on it. I guess you're supposed to rob people too.
Might be a crime stories.
Here are a bunch of little comic book tokens. I guess are the comic books you're developing. Oh, there's print. Original and ripoff are the 2 things you can print, and it looks like original costs more. There's sales down there. So what's the name of this game? Age of Comics is the name of the game.
There a section where you might have to deal with the mob?
You deal with the mob distribution?
Rip
off Simon and Schuster? Hide the entire company's expenses in the Captain America budget. Is that in there?
Yeah. So you don't have to pay any royalties.
I wonder if rip-off
Kind of party
means
is this?
if there's a popular comic and then you have to make a rip-off of that comic.
The age of God. And it's just amazing anybody made like a game out of that.
One of the designers is Portuguese.
Ah, that explains it. They're weird over in that country.
But she lives in Italy.
Ah.
The other designer is Italian. So this got a 7.6 rating on BoardGameGeek.com. Is that good?
I don't know.
That's a 7.6 out of 10. That's not too bad. Mind the Comics wants to know who is the designers from Portugal. Sonia
Gonçalves.
Yeah, like I have any idea what that last name was. I just heard him say some sounds.
You're supposed to be learning how to pronounce foreign names.
I know, but apparently I have to read them in order to pronounce them because hearing them just didn't help.
Hey, you kind of sound like you were clearing your throat. So I wasn't sure.
7.6 is good for that site, and holy hell is it expensive. That's right. Comic Crack has played a bunch of these random games I've seen him do videos of that he's bought. How expensive is it? That's Gone Calves, obviously. What does that 5 on the bottom of the C mean again?
It turns the C into an S.
Ah.
They just put an S. I don't understand.
And the G isn't a J, right?
No, the G is a G.
Okay.
But the E is mute. It's not silent, it's mute. And the S is pronounced like a soft sh.
Oh, you're just playing with us now.
Are you serious?
150 US-ish. That's a lot.
What the hell?
I can stay at home and play Stanley. I do not need to buy the game.
Can we wait 10 years and buy a box when it's on a 90% discount?
Yeah.
Wait, it's 65 euro. No, it's 65 euros, which is $80 at deliriousgames.com.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know what it is on Kickstarter. It's like Kickstarter is often the most expensive way to buy anything. So,
right. Always wait for the trade paperback.
Don't buy the $85 hardcover of Gatsby. Let's see. What other comic did I get this week that I want to show off? Oh, here's one I bought just to show my students what oversaturation is. This thing is so oversaturated.
Ooh, look at those waves. You can surf on those.
That my comic shop owner called them in as damaged. Because he's like, they're all like that. They're all damaged. I'm like, duh. I don't know if the whole print run was like that. But there's all this oversaturated black on the back of it and on the front of it. Because the rest of the comic is fine. It's not, it's not oversaturated.
You might as well just add all the black on the cover and let it seep to the other side.
Yeah, yeah. But I noticed there was a lot of I noticed about half a dozen oversaturated comics this week across the companies. But this one, obviously the most. It was just like I said, he thought they were damaged. He called them in as damaged to get new copies of them because they were that wavy, this cover. I mean, that looks like this one right here is, there we go. Looks like a crease almost. It's such a trough in the paper.
Does it say who printed those?
Where it was printed? I don't know, but first of all, it's self-covered.
Okay.
So it was probably printed at what's the name of it? The same place Marvel and DC prints that all of a sudden the name flew out of my head. That used to be Quebec Color. It is now Salisco.
Salisco. Okay.
Yeah. Let's see. Does it says printed in Canada? That's where it's from. No, this was printed in the USA, so it's not Salisco.
The Trans Graphics.
I don't know who else. I only know like what's that one that's in Texas? Brenner Printing. A lot of indies used to get printed there in black and white. I don't know if they are still doing comics in color, but wow, that is crazy oversaturated. Well, that's what happens when you use too much ink in your black.
Mm.
Ooh. But the comic was okay. This is the one that's done by, who does this? Chip Zdarsky and Jacob Phillips. And Jacob Phillips is Sean Phillips' son. The art is okay. The story is New Bern. I read the first, this is issue 13. I think I read the first 2 issues. And it was a story of this ex-cop who's kind of set himself up as the liaison between the police and the mob. He makes deals between the police and the mob. And this woman here, that right there, who in the first issues, he kind of recruited to be his assistant and eventually take over for him. But like I said, I read the first 2 issues. I read issue 13 now, and everything's gone to hell. The mob is after him now for messing things up. So he's trying to figure out, he and now she are trying to figure out a way out of this because everything is messed up. The Japanese mob is involved now. This New York mob is involved, and things aren't looking good for New Bern. He's supposed to be a fixer, and he's got a lot to fix. And it was okay. It was a solid issue, but it just never really grabbed me. It's a solid B, but I've got enough solid B comics.
The comic that I'm going to share, since we were showing off Cowboys before, is I haven't read this yet, but it's Superman number 10. And it's Superman as a cowboy on the cover.
Ooh. Hold on. We got to bring back classic gay male comic from Sleepy Reader, because that cowboy is looking a little homoerotic. With a scarf.
It's the coloring.
It's the coloring?
It's not only the coloring, because I did flip through it, and so he is, I don't know if he was there from the last issue, so he's in the Wild Plains. I don't know if that's Wonder Woman on an invisible horse.
I think that is.
It would definitely make sense if it was.
That reminds me of I bought an issue of, what was that? Oh yeah, there we go. Tom O'Finland could have drawn this comic. Buff, shirtless Superman. They're going for the Nightwing audience with this one.
Oh yeah.
He shot him in the butt. Looks nice.
Yeah, artwork is great. It looks like a lot of fun. Superman in the
Batman Confidential or something like that Chris Burnham drew and Morrison wrote.
It's a classic Superman shot looking over the earth.
Oh, that's classic Superman right there.
Oh yeah. So let's see the credits page. So as a 2-page spread of credits, it's a bit boring because it's like this kind of a there's a cool little Superman in the center. You almost miss him, and it's kind of neat. I would have off center him so he wouldn't just land on there.
Right,
you don't want to. It looks more like a a shadow more than anything else.
It looks good on screen, but on the paper with the seam, one of those.
Mm-hmm. But it looks like it's fun, so I'll look forward to reading it.
It was that what was the name of the Chris Burnham Morrison's, like Batman International, Batman Confidential, Batman something that they did. I bought an issue of it just for the cover, and it was like it was actually a very funny comic, but I don't know if everybody got the joke, because it was Morrison reviving all that DC superhero, Silver Age DC stuff with all the different Batmans from around the world. And on the cover was this Chris Burnham cover, right, with Batman riding his motorcycle in the desert with Native American Batman racing along beside him riding a bison. Mm-hmm. And it was Batman Incorporated. There we go. That was it. That was like issue number 6. And the cover just amused me to no end,
Right.
Batman racing a bison. I was just like, oh, man. Or a buffalo. I don't know which one. I think bison were in America.
I believe so. Well, both buffaloes and bisons were in America.
Yeah. Which are not what they're called buffalo in Africa, which are Cape buffalo.
Actually, only African buffaloes are buffaloes. American buffaloes are bisons.
Okay.
Oh, all right.
It gets confusing.
Yeah. Turns out pandas actually are bears. For a while, pandas were not bears.
Now they're back to being bears.
Yeah.
That's why I was just learning today on TikTok, listening to a little lecture, that if you look at a tree of, where animals look at, whales are on the tree of deer.
Mm-hmm. Not quite. Whales are more, the closest living relative to whales are hippos.
No, but in order, it was I forget what the two animals were. There were two. A whale is classified as a hooved animal.
So yes, it's between a deer and a horse.
All the hooved animals, whales have to be there.
Mm-hmm. And it's
just
close
like
to deer and a horse, but closer to deer.
Yeah. So it's like in order to make the tree of evolution or tree work, whales have to be in the hooved animal category, which is weird.
Oh, and the hooved animals and the carnivorous the hooved mammals and the carnivorous mammals split off from the same group.
Yeah. And the other thing was like you can't make humans its own branch. They have to be on the apes branch.
Yes.
Because in order to relate gorillas and like chimps to orangutans, humans have to be there. It's like orangutans are like further away from the great apes than we are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're so close to the chimps.
Yeah. So it's like that's just stuff I was learning on TikTok today.
Now, a couple of years ago, I decided to. I have a lot of these diagrams on books that I read as a kid with animal life. But then a few years ago, I went and checked on Wikipedia. And it turns out ever since they started using DNA analysis instead of comparative
anatomy,
comparative anatomy, yeah. They had to rearrange a lot of stuff, and that's why pandas are actually bears now, because pandas kind of don't look.
That's bananas.
That's bananas. But because of that, now every land animal is a fish, and all birds are reptiles.
Birds are dinosaurs. They're the dinosaurs that survived.
But we're all fish now.
I have one question written down in my book today that I wanted to ask. And this is a thought that struck me. It may have been a sleepy reader Sleepy. I can't remember if it was Sleepy Reader's video I was watching or somebody else's. It may have been his when he was talking about his parents bought him one comic and he said they wouldn't buy him any more comics, but they bought him comics, and I was like, and that got me to thinking. I don't think there's an equivalent today of what like comics were in the 60s and 70s and probably all the way into the 80s with parents not wanting their kids to be into comics. It was like when I was growing up, if you were into comic books, that was a red flag. Your parents really didn't want you to be into comics. I mean, forget the kids in your school comics weren't cool too. But it was like parents actively tried to get their kids not to collect comics.
Yes.
And they actively tried to punish their kids if they read comics.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think there's an equivalent to that today.
I've heard of it. I did not experience it.
Yeah, it may have been. It may have also tapered off by the time you came around.
Yeah, for me, I've had friends who tell the tale of their mom throwing away their comics and stuff like that. For me, it was different because when I started reading comics, my mother and my teachers noticed my grade point levels went up. My reading levels went up. My interest in reading skyrocketed.
Right.
So before comics, I didn't care about reading. After comics, not only did I read comics, I read other stuff. So because of it being a positive influence in my life at that time, I did not have to worry about my comics being tossed away. So my parents didn't care what I was, they were just happy I was reading.
I think by the mid to late 80s that had worn off more thanks to all this comic is worth $10,000 articles in the news too. It's like comics got their...
I didn't read about anything about that until the later 80s, like 89. It became newsworthy for me, where I noticed it. Oh, the news is reporting something about comics. But for between 83 to 89, there was nothing really about it.
I saw a lot about it.
My stepdad was like, hey, yeah, I read comics. They were cool. And that was it. And then my mom was like, she didn't care as long as I was reading, So I learned quickly not to bring the books to school and read them in class. And I've only ever gotten a comic taken, and it was my comic taken away, but I wasn't reading the comic. Someone was reading the comic, and this is in high school. A friend of mine was reading a graphic novel, so those are more expensive, and the teacher took it. And after class, it's like, you took my comic. He was reading it, but you took my comic. Never got it back. I didn't even you get it at the end of nothing like that. I think he was just collecting comics. So I stopped letting other people read my comics. That learned me quickly not to be in a situation where the comic could be taken away. If you want to borrow my comic book after school and bring it back the next day, that's fine. I've only ever lost 2 comics. The one that went to the teacher, and another kid borrowed the Spider-Man book, and I never got it back. He either lost it, sold it. I don't know what happened to it. Those are like the only
what graphic novel was it that the teacher took?
I don't recall exactly which book it is. I was racking my brain. As I was telling the story.
One of the Marvel graphic novels?
It was definitely a Marvel graphic novel. It would have been either... I don't know if it was the death of Captain Marvel, or if it would have been one of the Spider-Man ones, which at that time could have been Hooky, which was Bernie Wrightson artwork.
Right.
It could have been Hulk Thing, the graphic novel, but I don't recall what it was. I know I had since replaced it because graphic novels weren't hard to find at that time in the 80s. Once they published it, they were just kind of in print. So whatever I lost, I know I had replaced, but I don't remember exactly what it was. And then the Spider-Man book that was borrowed and never brought back was an amazing Spider-Man comic book. That was a Todd McFarlane issue with Scorpion, Spider-Man, and his Batman villain ripoff that he had at the time. I don't recall the name of the villain. It was like he only showed up for that one book. And it was like, so those are the only ones that I kind of like lost because they were taken away. One was a friend borrowed it, never gave it back. And the other one was the teacher took it. And it's like, I have to look back in I know I told the story in Facebook, so I might have written the issue, what issue it was. So I have to actually, it might actually not be in Facebook. It might be in MySpace. I know I told that story before, so that was a while ago. Because I could imagine how many teachers took comic books. Did they toss them out? Did they keep them? Who knows?
I don't think there's any equivalent now to what comic books were in the 60s and 70s to parents. Just like they just didn't want you to have anything to do with them.
Also,
because they were bad.
They were the popular medium, so of course they were evil. They were bad, and Wortham didn't help.
But like nowadays, like too much of something. They don't want kids playing too much video games.
Right.
They don't want kids watching too much TV. That was always but it was never even then they didn't want you watching too much TV.
Right.
But
it was whatever was popular that had the attention of
too
kids.
Much
now it's the
comic
phone.
Books were comic books. It was like once you paid too much attention to comic books, it was like I don't want my kid to be slow and retarded would be the word we used in the 70s. So, but I think that was a real thing then that doesn't exist anymore.
No, not at all. I don't think so at all. Like I think now it's more of like maybe the closest could have been manga because that was big for a short while. I mean, it's still big. But
I don't think parents ever cared if their kids read manga.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I think I could only guess that occasionally I see people talking about they have their faces in the phones.
Yeah, like too much of something is of course it's not that they don't like this. Too much screen time is bad. It's not that screen time is bad in general. It's that too much screen time is bad. Comics were bad in general. And if you paid too much attention to comics, that you had to put a stop to that because comics were bad in general for your child. And I hadn't thought of that until I heard. I think it was Sleepy Readers say his parents tried. They said they'd buy him one comic, and that was it ever.
My parents would occasionally buy me comics for stuff, and it's like it would always be I have that book already. or it's like and it's like just give me the money, I'll buy my own books.
That's why to me the Amazon wish list was like the greatest thing in the world. Because my family could finally get me the comics I wanted because they couldn't before then because I might have had it or
they would, and again, God love them, they just wanted to support. They would buy something that was comic related, but I would never buy myself. Mom showed up one day with a mug, a cup, and a saucer of Spider-Man stuff. And it's like, it's like, thanks. I have I have a thermos with Spider-Man on it because I got it as a gift. And it's like, it's neat, but I have no real use for a thermos. I don't make that much soup and go to a job where I can use a thermos. But again, it was like Spider-Man related.
Spider-Man related. Paulo's from that the continent, so they're very forward thinking. They thought comics were great.
No, but I mean the wrong country for it. I mean the country of dumb people who don't read. So, if I have to read, I better read something with actually words on it.
I was just watching a video today on why so many people in Asia have Portuguese names.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm subscribed to that guy.
What's his name?
Massaman.
Massaman? There we go. He does a lot of stuff about ethnicities around the world and who's where and where they came from and moved to and this and that. Some interesting stuff.
He had to restart his channel because he lost all his videos.
Oh.
They were pretty good.
There's that's right. He just restarted his channel like this month, right? I wrote on his in his comment section, this time please back up. Because he lost everything he was working, all his charts and graphs of all his genetics that he's worked on and where people are, because his computer died. I'm like, please back up.
Considering between the first, second, third, and fourth attempt at mapping all of the ethnic
group in the world
on genetic basis, it went from like 40 basic groups to 4,000.
Yeah.
Wow.
Gigantic map.
Anymore. Oh, and I just saw, I haven't read it yet. And once again, in one of my groups, what's the name of it? It's on Comic Book Historian site. No, that's not it. That's the Steve Ditko interview. Ah, crap. I don't know where it is now. Let me check my downloads folder because I think I made a PDF of it. It's about how there are no comic book historians.
Yeah.
What is the name of it? Ah, crap. I can't find it. Maybe it's on my other computer. It's on my desktop. Oh, well. Well, actually, I could just look over here. Hold on. It's not far away. What is the name of it?
So while he's looking for that, the other book that I picked up, and I may get a subscription to this because I'm starting to enjoy it. So it's Transformers issue number 4. And what I like about this cover is because this is basically out of the movie, because there's a scene where he jumps. Thank you. Where he jumps and he fires. So I kind of like it because it's basically a recreation of the scene from Transformers, the movie, of Optimus Prime jumping in the air. So I picked this up basically out of nostalgia for Transformers. My brother seems to be liking it, so the book will at least be read twice, one by him and one by me. And now that this is up to issue 4, I'm going to actually start reading them. So I've been hearing really good things about this, with the Skybound books. I think they're calling it the Energon universe. So it's supposed to be connected with
nice
G.I.
cover.
Joe. Yes, very nice cover. And like I mentioned, it's definitely it's recreating a scene from the movie. So I am enjoying what I've read so far.
Skybound is doing a nice job with those. Like that, it actually makes me a little sad that I'm not into Transformers and G.I. because I'm like, look, man, they're doing a good job with these.
Mm-hmm.
Really
I've been hearing so much good stuff about it. So once I read them, I'll give you a review on them. And I also picked up G.I. Joe. So this is 303.
Oh, you have to read Transformers while listening to Stan Bush.
Well, yeah, of course. You know.
The Larry Hama written series.
Yep. So that looks like it's Serpentor. That looks like he's been mutated.
Wasn't Cobra Commander Cobra Commander was mutated in the cartoon?
In the cartoon movie, he was mutated and turned into a Cobra, but he got better. And in this storyline, if I remember correctly from the issue before that, Serpentor decided he was going to blow up Cobra Island. And after blowing it up, whoever was left on the island got infected. And I do not know if they're all been turned into reptilians, but I think that's probably the new storyline that's going on. So I have not read this one yet. And I don't know, I haven't decided if I'm going to bother to pick up the other books that are kind of like spin-off books. So Cobra Commander is having his own
Cobra
issue.
Commander cover.
It is a very nice cover. Out of the two covers I've seen, this one's my favorite one. So I haven't decided if I'm going to pick that up and pick up. Duke has his own book as well.
That's a nice cover too, Duke. I remember that. I forget which cover I saw, but I was like, that's a pretty nice cover.
And the branding is nice. They're doing a good job on it. You go open the page right into action. The inside front cover gives you some stuff if you need to know about it.
And you can tell they're enthusiastic about it.
Yes. They're working on it. I think they're having a lot of fun working on it.
Yeah.
I'm liking the artwork, even if it's like a bit scratchy, but I like that. So there's a lot of energy to the artwork. It looks good. So I'm definitely looking forward to reading these as well.
Cool. I can't find that PDF /website. Now I have no idea where it is. But it was in one. It was either in the Marvel Method or what's that other one I can't remember. But it was somebody complaining that most comic book historians on the internet just repeat the legends. They're not actual historians who go to find the sources and this and that. They're just repeating the same old stories over and over again. And it was annoying him. I don't know. That's what annoys me too. I don't follow many comic book historians on YouTube because I find most of the time they're just repeating the legends.
Yeah, there are a few things that are kind of like going over and over again. Since I'm on TikTok more so than YouTube, every now and then someone will pop up on my feed and repeat a legend that's like, oh, now they're sticking with the same legend, and now they're adding like AI graphics. And it's like, oh, you're not even doing much homework, and it's hard to find. Because what I found that there are some on YouTube that are at least deep, and I don't recall the name, but there was somebody on YouTube that did a deep dive into a legend where I don't know if you heard about people trying to say that Spider-Man was stolen from a Ben Cooper Spider-Man.
Oh yeah,
so that old chestnut popped up again. But it was someone basically taking that information and going, all right, let's deep dive into this. And it was like, okay, he does the thumbnail clickbaity.
Right.
But he actually goes, okay, there's the information. And I can't believe that could possibly be true. And he breaks it down. Right. So at least he's looking at it kind of objectively, where it's like, okay, here's the information that was given to us. And he breaks everything down. It's like, no, his conclusion was basically, no, this cannot be that way because of these things.
I think I read that piece years ago. It's not new, right?
It is not new. It's definitely an older piece that I would say I ran into it probably about 4 to 5 years ago.
Yeah, I may have run into it then too.
Yeah, and it was big for a while, and then it all kind of leads back to one article that is done by if I remember correctly, is one article done by the guy who has this costume, and at the end he's just trying to sell it. And I think he created this whole story around it. And it's like to the point where it's like
people who believe those stories too have no idea how the creative process works.
No, not at all.
People who think, Wolverine was stolen off the slush pile. Like John Romita would need some amateur's design in order to create the Wolverine. It's just absurd. It's like that. That's not how it works. That's not how creative people work. That's not how someone as talented as John Romita works. He doesn't need the slush pile is not part of his process.
Right.
It would just wreck his process. If he had to go to the slush pile to find an idea, he may as well not be in that job.
Yeah, it's like
crazy.
It's fascinating to watch how people are popping up with stuff, and it's like that's not how it's done. And then and it's mostly people trying to make a buck somewhere along the line to go, what's the first appearance? That I'm finding fascinating. Oh, here's a news magazine. That's technically the first appearance of the black costume. Because here's a news magazine going, Spider-Man's changing his costume. This is what it looks like. And they're trying to say that magazine's the first appearance. It's like, oh.
This ad in an issue of Thor is the first Wolverine appearance.
Right. And it's like, yeah, no, that's just not, that's not it.
I've said this before, that one of the issues is first appearance is actually short for the first story someone appeared in.
Right.
Back before first appearances were a big thing, you'd say, oh, I want to read the first, oh, I like Wolverine now. I want to read the first story that he appeared in, because all you cared about was the read, and that drove up the value, and that eventually got shortened to first appearance, which then became literal.
Yeah. It's like it was a cameo before, now it's literal.
Right, and now it's
that one panel in the Hulk 180.
The reason nobody cared about that forever was because that wasn't the first story Wolverine appeared in.
Right.
The first story he appeared in was Hulk 181. But then when first appearance became literal, because people could sell more stuff that way.
Yeah.
And people don't know that first appearance used to mean something completely different.
Mm-hmm.
Because like I said, it was readers who drove the price, originally it was readers who drove the price of things up, because you wanted to read it. You wanted to read the first it was the readers, then it was the collectors. But then, readers aren't part of the process anymore. It's all collectors now.
Right.
Because if you want to read any particular story, you can read the digital version, you can read the trade paperback, you can read the hardcover, you can read the fourth printing. So if you want to read the first appearance of Spider-Gwen, you can.
Yeah.
It costs you nothing. So readers don't drive the price of anything anymore up. It's collectors who do. So that's why first appearance became literal. First it was a reader term, now it's a collector term. Which is why, collectors argue over what a first appearance is.
Right.
Is it that ad in Thor? What issue of Thor was it? Like 257? I don't know why that number pops in my head.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't even recall. And there was a long time I didn't read the ads. The ad had nothing to do with the comics, so I didn't care.
Right.
I read, the only thing that I would read when I was a kid reading comics is I read the comics, then I read the checklist.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would read a letters page, but rarely did I would read the letters page. Then I would read an ad that may had the superheroes on it and the merchandising pages. Something that popped up on my feed recently that was funny that I completely forgot until it popped up was the when Captain Crunch went missing. And so Ron Friends drew some stuff, a 2-page ad for the Captain Crunch is missing. If you could solve the mystery with Spider-Man, you could win X amount of money. Don't know if anyone ever won it. It's like that bike. Who won the bike? Who won the 7-Eleven
bike that ruined our comic covers?
Yeah, this comic book could be worth this much,
$10,000 or whatever it was.
Like,
another comic I got this week is The Deviant, issue number 3. And this is the one that's the Christmas noir story. It's by, who's this, James Tinian? James Tinian the fourth. Art by as the writer. Joshua Hickson is the art. Lettering by good old Hassan Otsmain Elhow. And I've been saying I don't know how many issues this is. If it's a mini, if it's a maxi, I was like, it can't be a continuing series because how long can a Christmas noir story last? But with this issue, I kind of question how long it could last because the basic characters in the story are our lead character, who he is trying to write a comic book about this serial killer. You've got the serial killer who's been in jail for the last 40 years, who our lead character, the comic book writer, is gay, and so is the serial killer. That's important to him writing the story about him. We get the flashback to when he got caught, and he may not be the actual killer. Homophobia may have had something to do with him being arrested and convicted. But this issue is all about the lead character's boyfriend, who's dealing with sort of his boyfriend being obsessed, the comic book writer, with writing the story. And what's he going to do? Is he going to get out of this funk? And then we get a flashback to the killings and what the cop did to arrest the serial killer. So I'm like, you know what? They could easily get 12 issues out of this. At this pace, and there may be a copycat. There's a copycat killer in the present day who's somehow trying to link the comic book writer to the killings. So I'm like, you know what? This may be a longer ride. With this issue, I went, being that it was all about sort of focused on the boyfriend in the past, I'm like, at the pace this plot, there's a lot of plot here. This could easily go on for 12 issues. So I'm like, I have no idea how long it's going to go, but it's been good. Like, it's okay with me that it goes on longer, but I'm like, you know what? I don't think this is a quick 6-issue mini from what I can tell, or a 4-issue mini. But we'll see. I just find it annoying when I don't know if something is a mini series or continuing. But it was good. The Deviant. Good stuff. I guess you'd call it a crime comic with a lot of character in it. And Missing Mars was peacing out, going over to Sci Friday on the Group Therapy podcast. Okay.
That was 20 minutes ago.
He's already there. He was peacing out a while ago.
Group Therapy podcast. Maybe I should take a look.
See, the other comic I picked up this week is Amazing Spider-Man 42. The gang war continues.
Do you get a map?
It should have the first page should have a map. Yep.
All right.
So there's the territories of who controls.
I'm okay with maps in my comics.
And then, of course, in the back is the homework assignment checklist. And they crossed them all off. I have none of those books. I only have the Amazing Spider-Man ones.
They're just letting you know which ones haven't come out yet.
Exactly. So
a bunch of miniseries and one-shots.
Yes.
But I like how they have to put an X in the box and cross off the name. It's like, a suspenders and belt right there.
And the 2-page spread, which again, I really do enjoy this design.
The bullet holes in glass.
Bullet holes in glass. That kind of gives you a spider webbing almost. And I like the yellow. It doesn't come up on the computer as well, but it's a nice yellow. Almost like that Ben Cooper costume. It's almost that same yellow. I wonder if they picked that on purpose. That might be the proof. So this continues the story of the gang war between. Oh, look at that. She-Hulk's appearing in this issue.
The Shulky.
Shulky?
Wasn't that her nickname in like the Burn or some comic? I remember. Shulky.
I think it was She-Hulky.
No, it was Shulky.
Was it Shulky?
Oh yeah. Huh. Don't call me Shulky. they should have made the gag. I am serious and don't call me Shulky. But they didn't.
And look at this. And there's an ad for celebrating 30 years of Marvels.
Wow. Which I still haven't got through.
I almost own some of that artwork. So sad. So
I tried reading it and just couldn't make it through it.
Well, you read part 1, then you wait 3 months, then you read part 2, then you wait another 3 months.
I still have the poster. One day I have to get it framed. So there was this exhibit at what was called the 4-Color Gallery. And it was a place in the city. It was a museum in the city that did display comic book art. And the Marvel's artwork was displayed there. And Alex Ross pages were like $300 at the time. And for me, at that time, as an intern, it's like, that's too much money.
That may as well be $1 million.
That might as well have been, but there was like a chance to own Alex Ross artwork.
Wow, for $300.
Like, yep. And it's like, I remember that. But it's like, so I got to help design the poster for it. And it was basically the X-Men cover one, where it was just blown up really big and it has 4-Color Gallery on it. So I got to not really design it, but more so do to make the paste up mechanical for it, because it was a very simple design being added to it, and it was just adding like the logos and stuff like that. But it was fun to be able to do that. It was like the only real exhibit that I ever saw that was, that at that time that focused on comic books. But now celebrating an anniversary.
I have to show you my new camera.
Oh, what you get?
Being that, if you saw, I posted the video this morning of one of my walks in New York City to Penn Station. But
I've been out most of the day, so I didn't get to see
film those walks, which we flip that screen and it turns on, and it's a camera with a built-in gimbal. So this moves, keeps it as steady as it can. It's a 3-axis gimbal.
Oh, that's really neat.
It just said my face is detected. So it follows along with my face as I move the camera.
Oh, that's really cool.
So you can see it following my face, keeping my face center. And it's got other features too, which I haven't figured out. And to turn it off, you just flip the LCD back and it turns on and gets back into position to go back in this case.
That is really cool, because you could set that up in your studio and do a walkthrough or get things off the shelves and continue to talk.
Right. It's got a tripod screw hole in the bottom tripod, so I can put it right on my tripod too.
Yeah.
Walk around with it.
That's really neat.
But I got that. I was like, oh, it's funny. That was the one I was talking about the sunk cost for, because I bought the handheld gimbal that I put a camera on, but I never used it because it was too big and clunky. That one is just like slip it in my bag and pull it out and take a walk from 14th Street to 34th Street. It works pretty well. There's still up and down with my walking, but it stabilizes most of it pretty well, much better than my handheld.
Right, holding the camera. Yeah,
holding the camera.
Nice. Where'd you get it? Is that an Amazon purchase?
Amazon. I got it from. I actually, I think I told the story last week. I got it because Sergio Carello, who used to work in the bullpen and has been an artist all these years, is a drone enthusiast. So I think DJ Osmo, I think is whoever the company was, he had one of their drones, and he posts drone footage sometimes on his Facebook channel. And he got in these YouTube drone groups and whatever he's been in for years. And they sent him one of these for free. So I guess so he's could social influence it, and it worked on me because I was like, wow, that's exactly what I'm looking for.
Nice.
Ran not cheap, ran just under $600. But wow, it works really well. And like I said, the convenience of it is really a factor. Because I kept meaning to shoot with my one that cost me $140 that I put my phone or whatever on all last fall and never did. Because I was always like, because you have to like level out all 3 stages of it and put it on. And it's just like, it works fine, but
yeah,
not for commuting, it turns out.
Maybe
I like making a movie.
Yeah, but that looks cool because it's small, compact, so you can do your walks. Yeah, I like that. That's really cool.
Goes right in my bag.
Yeah. You can even bring it to the comic book shop and show us what the shop looks like.
Book shop. I did already once, but now we got to shoot some video there. Maybe I'll shoot one of my weekly videos there.
Yeah, because I'm always curious of what people's comic book shops look like.
Right.
You know, because I'm fascinated how they're designed or how they're put together. It's amazing seeing shops over the years where they've been literal holes in the walls. You know, we had some in the Bronx that were just literally you walked into someone's it's a basement apartment type of thing, and other ones have been like converted garages. I've been in like a warehouse space where there was one place in Seattle, I don't recall the name, where it was just all the walls are just full of shelves, and then the rest of the floor was just these bins just full of comics, and there was no order to anything. So it was all a treasure hunt. Fascinating.
This shop is like a railroad apartment. If you've ever seen railroad apartments in Brooklyn, probably in other places too, they're called railroad apartments because one room goes. They're sort of like long and skinny, and one room goes into the next room, into the next room, into the next room. So if your bedroom is in the back, you have to walk through these 3 other rooms to get to it. And they used to be like one family would have the whole apartment, all 3 or 4 floors. They may even have been split in half too. That's why they're railroad apartments. But now it's like, one person rents one railroad, or usually 2 or 3 people rent one railroad apartment. So it's like you there's like the small room in the front that all the new comics are there, and then the back is all the back issues and stuff. They originally tried setting this one. They moved. I think they moved into this space in like 2009. So they've been there for a good long time. And I remember at one point they tried putting all the current comics in the back, so you'd have to walk through all the other stuff and maybe buy something. But I don't think that worked very well for them. So then they moved it back to the front, all the current comics. So I hardly ever go in the back because I don't buy back issues.
Right.
But plenty of other people do. Usually when I'm there, there's someone digging through back issues.
It's nice that some places still have back issues. Because I've seen some stores where it's just the new stuff and that's it. Because it's been a while since I've actually gone through back issues. The only times I've ever really done back issues is when Midtown Comics has its what they call their warehouse store, which is really in a house that was converted. So the main floor you walk in, it's like a regular everyday store, and then downstairs, which is like the basement, it's just all back issues. That's fun going through.
Comic Crack says, so am I. I love seeing what people's shops look like. Looking forward to that one, Jared. Yeah. And also the shop is right across the street from the Pearl River Post Office. So they sell things online and then just have to walk across the street to send it out.
Oh, that's convenient. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So it's a good location for them. Let's see, another comic I got this week. What's the Furthest Place from Here? Issue number 17. And this one's been good the last, 4 or 5 issues. I kind of was thought it drifted away for a while. Now they've revealed stuff. Oh, that one's there's a cool double page spread. They've been giving us answers to what's happening in this world where there's no adults. And now we've got this issue, which is sort of a prison story related issue where they get captured by these people who run a prison. So it's been good. I've been enjoying it thoroughly. The last four or five, like I always liked it, but for a few one story arc really kind of left me cold. But it's back to warming me up again, so that's good. Warming me up again. Mm-hmm. Let's see the last two comics I got. The last issue of Creep Show, Volume 2, Issue 5, and I realized I thought there was going to be 6 issues because there was 6 issues of Volume 1. But there was a separate holiday special, which I guess was really issue 6 of this series because it came out in place of the series in December. But another good... What's funny, let me show you this. I didn't realize it until after I got it home that this little kid is cutting off his action figure's head with a guillotine. With our Creep Show host looking on. And I think this issue's horror stories hit a theme where this one was about a politician trying to ban books and comic books. So this goth librarian shows up and he suddenly finds himself in the comic book where the panels of the comic book were sharp and cutting him. Until finally the comic book he's in gets burned in one of his own bonfires. So this is really getting revenge on the book burners story.
Death of 1,000 paper cuts.
Yep.
And the second one was kind of the same. It was getting revenge on the parents who didn't want him to read comic book story, which kind of tied into my theme, which I was thinking about before I read this. So this is about a monster under the bed who wants the things he loves. So the kid starts giving him the comic books for him to feed on until the parents get tired of all his comic books and burn them. So, of course, the monster under the bed is not very happy about that. So don't burn comics, kids. The monsters might get either the goth librarian or the monster on the bed might get you. Hey, Video Homicide, how you doing? Just wanted to stop by and say, hey. Video Homicide usually has a smoke sesh over on his channel on Friday nights too, so you can go over there and check that out. He likes comic books and horror movies and stuff like that. Used to be Bluntzilla many years ago. We've been following each other for years. He used to be on some of GPAP's off-air hangouts. That's where I met him. Back in those off-air hangout days. I have to have an off-air hangout on Zoom one of these weekends. Or just invite people to it.
That sounds cool. Video Homicide is the channel?
Yep, Video Homicide. And he always says 666, and I always leave him a 999 in response. Let's see, the last comic I got. I like this cover. It's Space Usagi, so it's a colorized reprint from the 80s. Not a Stan Sakai cover, but a Sweeney Boo cover.
Nice raptors or raptor-like dinosaur creatures.
Yeah, I just like I like the color. I like the raptors in the foreground and our heroes in the background.
It's a good design. It's a really cool
Nicely
design.
done. I usually like my logos on top, but I'm okay with this one.
Mm-hmm.
I'm okay.
My last comic for the week is Justice League versus Godzilla versus Kong.
Dun dun dun.
So we have a Aquaman cover.
Okay.
And from what I recall from the solicitations is that Aquaman calls in a couple of his Leviathans to try to take down Godzilla. So I'm not sure which particular, because I haven't opened them up yet. So I'm not sure exactly which Leviathans he's calling in. But I
Now,
do know that.
Who had Leviathans first, Aquaman or Submariner?
I don't know.
Submariner definitely had them in his Silver Age Resurrection. I don't know if he had them in the Golden Age. But right. I don't remember Aquaman having any Leviathans he could call on. What little Aquaman I read in the 70s.
Right. I don't know when an Aquaman Leviathan had shown up. I always associated the Leviathans with Namor. Because Namor, Submariner talked to the fish. Namor had his he had various horns.
Yeah.
That as long as you had the horn, you're able to call a Leviathan.
Right. And his very first Fantastic Four appearance, didn't he try to stomp the city with those Leviathans coming out of the water?
I believe he did. He and the Leviathan that Namor had was like a mutated whale.
Yeah, that could walk.
That could walk basically. So I don't know. I don't recognize the monsters other than Godzilla, and then they're calling the center one, I believe, that looks a little bit like a Cthulhu, a Kraken. So so I guess he's not calling it a Leviathan. He has the mighty Kraken, and I know they've mentioned it as a generic
term. Huh? We're just using it as a generic term.
Yeah, pretty much. Where the Marvel ones always had kind of some sort of name, Matua or whatever.
I don't think that Namor had any Leviathans in the Golden Age. I'm not saying he didn't, but I
don't remember any.
But the first Leviathan, Fantastic Four #4, is clearly because it's a Kirby design. So
right. It could be a Kirby thing. Of course, Kirby and giant monsters go hand in hand.
Exactly.
So it could be he invented those then for Silver Surfer, and Submariner eventually copied them. But I mean, Aquaman eventually copied them.
Yeah, because I think Aquaman didn't have like weird stuff. I think until the later years they started exploring more, because he had friendly animals.
Over the years, everybody was always desperate to make Aquaman cool in some way. So I'm giving him his own giant monsters probably was somebody's idea to make him cool.
I think so too, because I don't recall reading any comic books with a giant sea monster in the Aquaman books. When I was reading the books, he was just coming off having the animal friends, like his seahorse and the octopus that played the drums. I don't even think I saw a monster until the Aquaman movie. He had a Kraken in there. He had a giant monster in there. So other than that, I don't know if he had it in the comic books. I know he had a whale once that he used, but it was just a regular whale. So I associate more of the monsters with Namor.
What movie is Release the Kraken from?
That's the Clash of the Titans.
Okay.
Ray Harryhausen movie. So that's where
became a meme. Release the Kraken. I just saw something on Bugs Bunny. That I never knew. Well, I may have known before and forgot. Sometimes you learn things and then forget them, and then you're not sure if you ever learned them or not. But carrots, bunnies can't eat carrots; they're bad for them. So why do we associate carrots with bunnies? We do that because of Bugs Bunny.
Right.
Why was Bugs Bunny eating a carrot?
I've read that he is mimicking a scene from a movie from around that time that came out around that time, but the movie became forgotten and Bugs Bunny became ubiquitous.
Clark Gable movie.
Right.
And it was a meme. Clark Gable was doing this scene where he's eating a carrot and talking to I forget the name of the movie. It was a Clark Gable movie I never even heard of. But it was a popular movie.
And I think he came up with what's up Doc in that scene.
Yeah, I don't even know I don't remember. So it's like everybody who watched the first Bugs Bunnies knew that meme and knew he was doing Clark Gable. But we don't.
Right.
And because of that, because of Clark Gable eating a carrot in that scene, we now associate carrots with rabbits, even though rabbits don't eat carrots.
Yeah.
Well, they can eat carrot tops.
Maybe, yeah.
Because they're green. They're the leaves.
Right.
Yeah, so it was basically a cartoon making fun of the current, or that time period, a current thing, and it
that was a meme that everybody knew.
And it moved away from there, and most all cartoons are kind of like that, where
and 70 years later,
whatever is sprung from, even Steamboat Willie, the song is from something else. It was like that was also making fun of another whatever was the pop culture thing at that time period. It was kind of making fun of it.
Steamboat Willie. Oh, and I wanted to show. Remember last week's Ice Cream Man that had poetry with illustrations?
Yeah.
I just wanted to show. And I said I already read something with poetry. This is I'll show it to you. The Sun, which is kind of a literary magazine, you'd call it. It's about writing. And it's mostly short stories and it's usually one interview every week. Short stories. But there's often, as I mentioned, I already read it. Let's see, where's a page with poetry on it? There's sometimes, there's the one. There we go. Here's where I read my poetry. There's a poem right there. And there's also there's photography. This one, there's sometimes photography in it. But I just wanted to show that off for a moment, since I mentioned it last week.
Well, since we're talking about poetry, I went to a live poetry reading today, which was basically I was riding the subway. And somebody came onto the train and it was like, ladies and gentlemen, if I could read you a poem. And the guy called the poem Pizza. And he would like to buy a pizza today. Would you give me some money to buy a pizza? And then he started to list the kind of pizzas that he likes and where he likes going to get the best pizzas. So and then he then to me it was like it irked me because he started singing. It's like, but that's not a poem. That's a song. And that kind of
sometimes that epic poetry was sung. So I don't know. I think you may be wrong there.
So
like the Iliad and the Odyssey.
Right.
I guess sing that stuff to remember it.
Okay. So for me, it's like, I don't count that as poetry, but I guess it is. So he began singing, but it was just a way for him to make some money on the train.
Kit Goblin missed the whole show. Check you all out in the reruns. Max Headroom stuff. Max Headroom. Hold on, I'm glitching.
How dare you, Tit Goblin?
Yes.
You know you're mandated to be here from the start.
So you're gonna have to
Unless
watch
you,
the Read, Rip, and Slab, and then just mail us your choices,
Your
or
choices.
save it for next week.
mm,
They'll just cut and paste it in next week, first thing.
There you go. That's his homework assignment.
By the way, did you see in my, like I said, I posted my walk from 14th Street up to Penn Station, and Mind the Comics wrote, "Oh, I'm going to watch this. I don't have time to write this all now, but at 1:16 there's a Frank Miller Ninja." And he left a link to it. And sure enough, I clicked on there. I'm like, what? Who is that guy? What is he doing? So be sure to check on it just to look at that Frank Miller Ninja. And I remember noticing him as he kind of walked by, but then I immediately forgot about it. But He's got like his leg wrapped up. He's like, I think he might be shirtless, and it's a 23-degree day, 23 degrees Fahrenheit.
I was out today, and it's like, it is biting cold.
So I was like, what is that up to? By the way, an update on my coat, which, of course, I was wearing as I was walking with this. I bought that coat is really good until the 30s. Mm-hmm. So over Christmas, I brought a light fleece coat to go under it on those 20-degree days. It was 16 when I was walking in the morning. And I got to say, the two worked together very well. I was toasty warm.
Oh, good.
The big, long duster and the shorter fleece coat underneath, I was set. I was like, whoa, 16 degrees don't mean nothing to me. Except as I was sitting there, taking the video, I was trying not to sniffle.
Right.
Because, of course, that makes your nose run, that weather. So I was like, don't sniffle, because this got some pretty sensitive mics in here. It's got I think 2 or 3 mics. So it was going pretty well. It was a Frank Miller Ninja for real. Yeah, I swear, you're right. You're right. Though I did miss, I reached Port Authority. There's also there's a little joystick on this that I can move if I'm not using face tracking, I can move the camera up and down and left and right. And I can also, if I press the joystick 3 times, it spins it around to selfie mode to face me. So that's what I did when I reached Penn Station, is I put it in selfie mode and ended with, and that's my walk. Then I turned it off. Then as I walked closer to Port Authority, there was like a homeless guy going, "Ooh, those eyes are watching. Those eyes better watch me. They better watch me." Like homeless guys love that jacket. But I didn't get them on film because I had just turned it off. But I got to say, homeless guys are some of my best audience for that jacket. They love commenting on it.
Nice.
Nice. Frank Miller Ninja for real. Ooh, well, we should wrap up. Anybody got any last thoughts tonight?
No, not really.
Read more comics.
There you go.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of kayfabe, I've been I've made sure that I've been leaving comments on their videos about 1961 Marvel.
Ah, okay. I haven't checked them out in a while. I'm gonna go have to. Mm-hmm. They just filled up my feed too quickly with videos. I didn't have time for all of it. That's like Graphic Man puts out his thumbnail way too early.
Yeah.
By the time it comes around, I've forgotten about it. I've hidden the thumbnail because it's just hanging around and being annoying. I'm like, put that out the day of.
Or at least 48 hours.
Good putting out 6 days before.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I've seen a few 2 weeks in advance.
Yeah. It's like, we don't need that much notice.
I don't even know if I'm going to be alive in 2 weeks. Maybe aliens conquer the planet or something and blow up all major cities.
Way too much notice. All right. So y'all have a good week out there.
Take
and we
care,
will
everybody.
catch you next time.